Welcome back. My name is Brijesh. Today we are going to start with the chapter number 8 of history, class 8. Earlier we have completed the class 6 and 7 history, and this is a very big and vast chapter. Will provide a lot of information about the movement related to women and their education, about the caste and the reforms. So very important lesson in terms of providing the information, and a lot of facts has been provided in this particular chapter. Before that, if you have not subscribed this channel, then I would request you to please like and subscribe the channel and also share these initiatives with your friends. So let's start with the chapter. So here an information has been provided that the 200 years ago things were very difficult for most children were married off at an early age. Both Hindu and Muslims men could marry more than one wife. Okay, so these type of things were prevalent in the earlier society. Okay, so in some parts of the country, widows were praised if they chose death by burning themselves on the funeral pyre of their husband. So sati was a concept in which a lady who has been widowed or her husband has been died, then that particular lady had to she had to sacrifice herself on the funeral pyre of her husband. Okay, so that particular lady used to be considered or used to called as the sati and used to be considered very pious. Okay, so women's rights to the property were also restricted. A lot of things which were not correct in that time. So apart from sati, that the women who died in this manner, whether willing or otherwise, were called as sati, meaning virtuous women. And the rights of the properties were very strict. Most women had virtually no access to the education. So we can understand that what type of situation have been for the women in that time, because they were not only the subject of getting these type of things, but they were getting married early age as well. So they were getting married at early age, and if somebody had died, then they had to perform the sati as well. There was no education provided to them. A lot of bad things were happening with them. Okay, so difference between the men and women were not only in one society but was prevalent in the almost in the entire subcontinent of the Indian region. People were divided along the lines of caste. Brahmins and Kshatriyas considered themselves as the upper caste. Others, such as the traders, moneylenders, often referred as the Vaishyas, were placed after them. And then came the peasants. So, an hierarchy was placed such as that if we want to understand the caste system, then Brahmins are at the top, then Kshatriyas, okay, then Vaishyas who were involved in the trading activities or were the money lenders, okay, then were the artisans, peasants, and the weavers and potters referred to as the Shudras. So Shudras are here. There was one more classification at the lowest rank where the those people who labored to keep the cities and villages clean work as the job that upper caste considered polluting. So here the this purity pollution concept got developed, or we can say this particular concept earlier also prevalent, but it as we understood that the time changes, but this particular thing never changed. Okay, so polity or the purity concept continued, and the upper caste also treated many of these groups at the bottom, and they were called as the untouchables. So here Brahmins, here Kshatriyas, here Vaishyas, okay, here Shudras and the okay, and later on the bottom at the lowest bottom were the untouchables. So this type of classification was there in terms of caste. So they were not, so these untouchables were not allowed to enter the temples, draw water from the wells used by the upper caste, or bathe in the ponds where the upper caste bath. So they were seen as the inferior human beings. So you can understand in today's world, thinking such kind of thing is we can say that very cruel and unthinkable. But in contemporary world also we see that sometimes we get to know about these type of things here and there, but this type of rigid classification is not existing in the world in contemporary times. Okay, so but these type of things were happening in the in the earlier time. So remember this. So what would happen? These things would lead to a sort of a movement, and the people would be opposing. So we will understand that how the things will be changing. So working towards the change. So early 19th century, we find debates that the discussions about the social customs and practices taking on new character, because there was a requirement of these type of changes, because nobody could live in such a environment where these type of oppression or repressive practices were getting practiced by the different people of the different castes, such as the brahmanas, kshatriyas, or the vaishyas. So the people who were at the lower strata were not comfortable, and they were exploited, and the situation of women were also not very conducive. Okay, so we have already seen that sati was prevalent, and they were not given the education, they were considered the inferior human beings. So all these things were there. So definitely there will be a movement, and the people who are the well-wisher of all these communities, including the women as well. So they must have uh, raised the banner, or they must have started some sort of movement to uplift these people, okay, and to provide the education and to abolish all these practices which were prevalent, uh, and which were monstrous in term for the women. So we will see that who were those people who raised the banner and who took the initiatives. So let us understand one important reason: the development of new form of communication. So communication always plays an important role, because if we see in the contemporary world today, providing information has become very easy and convenient. So whenever we see anything which is going wrong, we can just click an image, or we can make a video and we can upload. So this is a sort of mode of communication using which we can notify anything which is going against the law, right? So what was happening, or what type of developments were happening early 19th century? There were the books, newspaper, magazines, okay, and the pamphlets were printed. So these things were providing the information, and these information were helping to these people that how they can uplift themselves, okay, or the people who were the educated middle class, they also started thinking about the upliftment of all those people who were getting exploited. So all kind of issues such as social, political, economical, religious could now be debated and discussed by the men, and sometimes by the women as well, in the new cities, right? Because as the industry develops, so with the industry new cities get developed, and in new cities the middle class also get developed. This middle class was getting educated. We have already seen that how after the dispatch, the votes dispatch, how the things changed. And we will see in 1904 also there were several changes which were made in the education. And when the taste and the British education or the English education got into the system of these Indians, then they would be able to understand that these discriminations are not good, and hence there will be movements. So very prominent figure Raja Ram Mohan Rai, okay, he founded a reform association known as Brahmo Samaj. So I am referring to here Brahmo Samaj. Who started? Raja Ram Mohan Rai. Remember this. Okay. Later known as Brahmo Samaj. So initially it was started as the Brahmo Sabha, and later on it got to be known as the Brahmo Samaj, and it was started in Kolkata. Remember this. So people such as Raja Ram Mohan Roy described as reformer because they felt that the changes were necessary in society and unjust practices need to be done away with. Done away with means that these practices should be stopped, okay, and these should not be practiced anymore. Okay, so this was the meaning. So why Raja Ram Mohan Roy and the other people who were called as the reformers were doing these sort of things? Let us understand. So, moving ahead, Raja Mohan Roy was the keen to spread the knowledge of Western education in the country and bring about the greater freedom and equality for women as well. So, he was a person who was not only fighting for the to uplift the people of the lower strata, but also he was fighting for the equality for the women as well. So we will see that what type of changes will be brought because of his efforts, changing the life of widows. So let us see. Raja Ram Mohan Rai began a campaign against the practice of sati. Okay, so remember all the contributions which were made by him. So he began a campaign against the practice of sati. Here, Raja Ram Mohan Roy was well versed in Sanskrit, Persian, and several other language, Indian and European languages. So in a way, we can say that Raja Ram Mohan Roy was a linguist and tried to show through his writing that the practice of video burning had no sanction in ancient texts. So this particular method of providing the evidence from the ancient texts would become a prominent method for these people who were fighting in that time, that all these practices which were getting practiced in the different part of the Indian subcontinent, they were nowhere mentioned in the ancient text, and hence they should be stopped immediately. So this was their stand. Okay, so many British officials who were able to understand all these things, more than willing to listen to the Raja Ram Mohan Rai, who reputed to be the learned man, and in 1829 sati was banned. So remember this particular date when the sati was banned. 1829 sati was banned. Remember this. And because of whose effort it was done, because of the Raja Ram Mohan Roy's effort it was done. So we have seen that earlier also the Britishers had very much belief in the Indian customs, and they used to consider the Indian customs as the very backward. Okay, but because of the all these people the who were getting educated, and they were raising the voice, and so they also started appreciating these efforts of these people. One of the most famous reformers was the Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. Here I'm referring to this particular Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. Used the ancient text to suggest that widows could remarry. So what he was arguing, that the widows could remarry, but earlier, before that, the situation was very bad. Women had to either commit the, like, she can perform the sati, and she had no other option apart from getting dressed in a tradition way, which was considered that a lady after getting widow, she should wear the white sari and other things which were prevalent in the different part of the India. But what Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar did, that he fought for this cause, that it is wrong, and these widow women can also remarry. So his suggestion was adopted by the British officials, and law was passed in 1856 permitting widow remarriage. So very big win for Raja Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, and in 1856 permitting widow remarriage, an act was passed. Okay, so remember this, when the widow remarriage act was passed, it was 1856. Okay, so these are the important dates, remember this. So in the Telugu speaking area of the Madras presidency, Veerasalingam Pantulu formed an association for widow remarriage. So this can be a very good question in terms of prelims, that in the southern part, in the Madras presidency, who was the person who formed an association for widow remarriage? It was the Veerasalingam Pantulu. Remember this. Okay. So in the northern part, what was happening in the northern? Swami Dayanand Saraswati. So here an image has been shown. Okay, of Swamiji. Swami Dayanand Saraswati, who founded the reform association called as the Arya Samaj. So which was the organization or the association? It was the Arya Samaj. Also supported the widow remarriage. So he was also a supporter of the widow remarriage. So all these people who saw the different type of problems in the Indian society, they opposed it. Okay, and they supported all those practices which were good, such as the widow remarriage, abolition of sati, abolition of child marriage, all these things. Remember this. So girls being going to school, many of the reformers felt that the education for girls was necessary in order to improve the condition of women. So Vidyasagar in Calcutta, many other reformers in Bombay set up the schools for girls. So there was thought that if the women or these girls would be able to go to school, they would be able to understand that how they can improve their own condition. Okay, and they would be able to convey the message that they can also contribute in the society as the men are doing. Okay, so hence they thought that the education would be the best method. Hence, several reformers such as the Ishwar Chand Vidyasagar in the and in Kolkata, whereas the other people in the Bombay were also making the efforts. So, name has been provided. Ras Sundari Devi, okay, secretly learned to read and write in the flickering light of the candle at night. In the later part of the century, schools for the girl were established by the Arya Samaj in Punjab and the Jyotirao Phule in Maharashtra. So the Arya Samaj in Punjab, whereas the Jyotirao Phule Maharashtra was doing all these things, that's opening the school for the women or the girls. So reformers such as Mumtaz Ali reinterpreted verses from the Quran and argue for the women's education. So all these the Muslim women as well were participating in huge numbers, and they were very vociferous in terms of that the women should be educated and the girls' education should be promoted. So here a name Mumtaz Ali reinterpreted the verses from Quran to argue for the women's education. So we are seeing that what we have seen that the Raja Ram Mohan Rai and the Ishwar Chand Vidyasagar also took the help of the ancient text and presented the ancient text as the evidence that nowhere it has been mentioned that the burning of women is good, or widow cannot be remarried. So all these things were presented, and so was done by the Mumtaz Ali as well. Okay, in the support of the women education. So what was the contribution of the women? So women started to write about the women's problem. So Muslim women like as the Begum of Bhopal. Okay, so remember the different prominent figures who were contributing. Begum of Bhopal played a notable role in promoting the education among women. They founded a primary school for girls at Aligarh. Remember this. Aligarh, a school was opened, okay, and there was another prominent name, Begum Rokeya Sakhawat Hossain started a school for Muslim girls in Patna and Calcutta. Remember this particular name as well? Begum Rokeya Sakhawat Hossain started the school where in Patna and Calcutta, okay, and Begum of Bhopal started the school in Aligarh. So Begum Ruqayya was a fearless person and critic of the conservative ideas, arguing that the religious leaders of every faith accorded an inferior place to women. So we have already seen that yes, it was getting done because women were getting burned, women were not treated, they were not getting education. Okay, they were getting married early. So all these type of things were prevalent. Tarabai Sinde, a woman educated at the home at Patna or at Pune, published a book. What was the name of this particular book? Remember the name? Who published this book? Tarabai Shinde. So I'm referring this name, Tarabai Shinde, and here is the book. Okay, Stri Purush Tulna. So comparison of women and men. Okay, so criticizing some of the social differences between the men and women. So this was the theme of this particular book, Stri Purush Tulna, written by Tarabai Shinde. There was another name, Pandita Ramabai. Remember this name. An image has been shown of Pandita Ramabai. A great scholar of Sanskrit felt that the Hinduism was the oppressive toward women and wrote a book about the miserable life of upper caste Hindu women. She found a widow's home at Pune. Where she found the widow's home? She founded the widow's home at Pune to provide shelter to widows who had been treated badly by their husband and relatives. So we have seen all these type of things were happening, and the women's were not also getting treated nicely by the people of their home or the relatives as well. So what she did, that she opened a widow's home at Pune, okay, and she wanted to support the socially and financially or economically to all these women who were getting treated in this manner. Okay, so we are covering only the important facts and figure because a lot of things have been provided in this particular chapter in terms of story, okay, which is not important for us, but we will look at all those important name, figures, and the dates which can be asked in the examination. So let us move ahead. Law related to child marriage. In 1929, the Child Marriage Restraint Act was passed. According to Act, no man below the age of 18 and women below the age of 16 could marry. Subsequently, these limits were raised to 21 for men and 18 for women. So, remember this. When this particular act, Child Marriage Restraint Act, was passed, it was 1929, though I have already underlined it. And the age which was fixed, 18 for the men and 16 for the women. Okay, remember this, 18 and 16. And later on it was changed to 21 and 18. So remember this. Caste and social reforms. Ram Mohan Rai translated an old Buddhist text that was critical of caste. The Prathna Samaj adhered to the tradition of bhakti and believed in spiritual equality of all castes. So he was not only fighting for the causes of the women, but he was also fighting for the cause to abolish the caste system, okay, which was discriminatory. And Prathna Samaj adhered to the tradition of the bhakti and believed in the spiritual equality of all castes, that no caste is different and all castes or the all people are equal. The Paramhans Mandali was founded in 1840 to work for the abolition of castes. So here the different we can say associations and the organizations which were getting developed or were made by the different people, they were trying to abolish this caste system. They were fighting hard for to abolish all these systems which were prevalent and were not good, healthy for the Indian society. Okay, so one prominent name was among them was Paramhans Mandali, established in 1840. Remember this. So, 19th century, Christian missionaries began setting up schools for tribal group and lower caste children. Okay, so they were also contributing to educate. So they had the different purpose of teaching or providing the literacy to these people so that they can convert, but any which ways. Ultimately, it was benefiting to the people of the children who were getting educated at all these places which were set up by these missionaries. So the poor from the villages and the small towns, many of them from the low caste, began moving to the cities where there was a new demand for labor. Why these people were getting moved, we will understand, but what type of conditions got developed? Because of we have already seen that because of the industrialization, new cities got developed, and all those people who were living in the villages started to found the work in all these cities, and there was the requirement of the several type of labor. Okay, so the poor people started to migrate. Okay, and the people were also coming from the lower strata. So the poor people from the low caste saw this as an opportunity to get away from the oppressive hold that upper caste landowners exert over their lives and daily humiliation they suffer. Just to avoid all these type of sufferings, what they chose that they moved out of these cities or these villages and moved to the cities where they could just get some work and live their life with dignity. Okay, so this was the sole purpose of their movement. So here a ship has been shown. Why this ship has been shown? Here some information has been provided in this particular box. So this coolie ship named John Allen carried many Indian laborers to Mauritius. So these Britishers, what they were doing, they were capturing the people, okay, who were poor, because we have already seen in the previous chapters that how the Indian art and architecture of the artisans and the different works, okay, such as producing the raw material, all those people who were indus, such as the teenagers or the farmers, indus in all these works, they no more had all these works. Now they need to survive any which ways. So what these Britishers did, they just picked up all these people who were very poor, and they took to them to the another countries such as the Mauritius. Okay, and there were the other countries as well where they were transferred. So all type of sufferings they had to suffer. And here an image of the Madigas has been shown that they were making the shoes. And who was the Madigas? Madigas belongs to Andhra Pradesh. Madigas were an important untouchable caste of the present day Andhra Pradesh. were the expert at cleaning hides, tanning them for use, and sewing sandals. So here they were the people who used to work on the skin of the dead animal, okay, and they used to clean and they used to tan and they used to make the sandals out after sewing all these skin or the hides. Remember this. So we are referring to the Marigas, okay. The army of, for instances, offered an opportunity how a number of Mahar people who were regarded as untouchable. So who were Mahars? Mahars were the so-called untouchables, found jobs in the Mahar regiment. The father of B.R. Ambedkar, the leader of Dalit movement, taught at an army school. So father of B.R. Ambedkar used to taught at or teach at the army school. Remember this. So here another image has been depicted. So all these images are not very good, we can say, because these images are just to provide the information that how what type of the conditions were prevalent in Indian subcontinent, which were not good. Look at these people who were working hard, and these are the who these are the double that labored for upper caste landowners. So landlords were the people who used to have big lands, and these dublas were the laborer of the upper caste, and they used to belong from the Gujarat, okay. So remember this. So they used to belong to the Gujarats here, Gujarat, okay. So if you look, pay close attention, then they have not wear any type of shoes, and their living condition is not looking very conducive or good. So we can understand that what type of situation or what type of condition were prevalent in that time, okay. So demand for equality and justice, ultimately when people will feel oppressive, there would be a time that they would raise their voice. So this happened, and the people started to raise their voice for the equality and justice. How? By the second half of 19th century, what type of changes happened? The Satnabi movement in central India was founded by whom? By Ghasidas. Remember this name? Who started the Satnabi movement? Satnami movement was started by Ghasidas in the central India, okay, and who worked among the leather workers and organized a movement to improve their social status. So this particular person, Ghasidas, who started the Satnami movement, used to work among the leather worker, and the movement was to improve the social status of these people. In Eastern Bengal, there was Haridas Thakur, okay. His sect was Matua sect. So remember this, okay. His sect was Matua sect. Worked among the Chandal cultivators. So who were the Chandals? If in the previous chapters we have covered that the Chandals were the people who were considered as the untouchables, and whenever they used to come in the market, they were suggested they need to have the stick, and they need to beat the stick before coming to the market, so all the people who are there, they can provide some way to them and they should not be touched, okay. So they used to be considered as the untouchables. So Haridas Thakur in the Eastern Bengal, his sect was the Matua sect, worked among the these Chandal cultivators to promote or the upliftment of these people. In Kerala, a very prominent name, a guru from Ijava caste. Which caste? Ijava caste. Here, Ijava caste. Sri Narayan Guru. Remember the name. Sri Narayan Guru proclaimed the idea of unity. Okay, for his people, he argued against the treating people unequally on the basis of caste differences, according to whom all humankind belong to the same caste. There is no different caste. All people belong to the one caste. This was the prominent thinking of the Sri Narayan Guru, who used to belong from the Ijava caste. Okay, so what was his famous statement? This is the famous statement: Oru Jati, okay, Oru Matam, Oru Devam, Manu Shionu. Oru Jati, Oru Matam, Oru Devam, Manushyanum, one caste, one religion, one God for humankind. Remember this. So this was the statement. So by that time you must have understood that all these people were raising the voice for the different type of the problems which were prevailing in the Indian subcontinent, such as the caste system, such as the widow remarriage, uh, or the sati, child marriage. All these things were there. Okay, so to oppose all these type of things, there were the prominent leaders who started the different organizations. Okay, for the caste, the prominent name which we have already seen. Okay, and here the Sri Narayan Guru was also raising the same voice that there is only one caste and one God for humankind. All these sects were founded by the leaders who came to non-Brahman caste and worked among them. They tried to change those habits and practices which have provoked the contempt of dominant caste. They tried to create a sense of self-esteem among the subordinate caste. So they were raising that you need to uplift your esteem. Okay, and to and they promoted the equality in all these sects. Okay, so Gulamgiri. Now let us understand that what is the meaning of Gulamgiri and who was the person who wrote this. Most vocal amongst the low caste leader was the Jyotirao Phule. An image has been shown of Jyotirao Phule. Born in 1827, studied at the Christian missionaries. He set out attack on the Brahman clans that they were superior to others since they were the Aryans. So this was a theory which was propounded by the Britishers, that these Aryan came to the outside from these Aryans who invaded the India, and this was the theory which was prevalent and was very popular, and all these the reformers, they were against the Aryans, who used to call them as the Brahmins or the upper caste. Okay, they are not they do not belong from this particular subcontinent. All the untouchables and the lower caste used to belong from this particular land, because this particular paragraph provide the information about that type of thought. So let us read this particular paragraph. So Phule argued that the Aryans were the foreigners who came from outside the subcontinent and defeated and subjugated the children of the country, and those who had lived here from the before coming of the Aryans. The Aryan established their dominance. Okay, they began looking at the defeated population as inferior, as low caste. According to Phule, upper caste had no right to their land and power. In reality, the land belonged to indigenous people, so-called low caste. So this was the thought. Okay, so he established the Satyasodak Samaj. So what was the name of his organization or association? Satyasodak Samaj. An association Phule formed, okay, and propagated caste equality. So he was also opposed of the caste, and he propagated the caste equality. Remember this. And Satyasodak Samaj was the name of the association. In 1873, Phule wrote a book named Gulamgiri, meaning slavery. So Gulamgiri means slavery. 10 years before writing this book, American Civil War had been fought, leading to the end of slavery in America. Phule dedicated his book to all those Americans who had fought to free the slaves. Okay, so caste reforms was continued in the 20th century by the other Dalit leaders such as the B.R. Ambedkar in the western, E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar in the southern. So all these prominent figures who were fighting for the equality, okay, and to abolish the caste system, such as the B.R. Ambedkar and the E.V. Ramaswamy in the southern part. Okay, so who could enter the temple? Ambedkar was born into Mahar family. He got the fellowship to go to the US for higher study. On his return to India in 1919, when he returned to India, 1919, and when the Gandhiji was returned to India, 1915. So remember this. He wrote extensively about upper caste power in the contemporary society. In 1927, Ambedkar started a temple entry movement. So remember this particular information, which is really important. In 1927, he started a movement, temple entry movement, in which his Mahar caste followers participated. Brahman priests were outraged because when the Dalit used the water from the temple tank. So when the Dalits, so-called Dalits, use the water from the temple tank, these Brahmins or the priest got infuriated because of this act. Okay, and the sole purpose of this movement was that the people from the Mahar caste or any other caste which were considered as the lower caste, they should be equated and should be provided the equal respect, and they should be allowed to fetch the water from the tanks or the wells which were meant for everyone. It was not related to that any specific caste can fetch the water from a particular well or a tank. These institutions, these tanks, these temples should be open for everyone. Okay, so Ambedkar led three such movements for temple entry between 1927 and 1935. So remember this, because sometimes this comes as a fact, and sometimes we do not remember all these important information which has been provided in NCERT, but this becomes the base of the prelims question. So remember this, that there were the three movement done started by the Ambedkar. Okay, these were the temple entry movement between 1927 to 1935. Okay, so non-Brahman movements, early 20th century non-Brahman movement started. The initiative came from those non-Brahman castes that acquired the access to education, wealth and influence. So because it became their social responsibility that now, since they have got the education, now they need to work in the same direction to upliftment of the other people as well, who do not have any access of to the education, and they were not aware about such type of problems. Okay, that how they can uplift their own people. So E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar or Periyar, I am referring to this particular line. E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar, he was also called as the Periyar, came from the middle class family. He had been ascetic in his early life and had studied the Sanskrit scripture carefully. He became the member of the Congress as well and left it in the disgust when he found that the feast organized by the nationalist sitting arrangements followed caste distinction. So he was very hurt because of this type of arrangement, that in the fest there was the arrangement, there was the caste distinction, that the lower caste were made to sit at a distance from the upper caste. Okay, and convinced that the untouchable had to fight for their dignity, Periyar founded the self-respect movement. So which type of movement is started by Periyar? Periyar founded the self-respect movement. Remember this. Earlier he was the part of the Indian National Congress, but later on he left because of all the, by looking at this type of discrimination. Okay, so he argued that the untouchable were the true upholder and original Tamil and Dravidian culture which had been subjugated by Brahmins. Okay, Periyar was an outspoken critic of Hindu scripture, especially codes of Manu, an ancient lawgiver, and Bhagavad Gita and Ramayana. So he was opposing all these texts, the codes of Manu, Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana. He said that these texts had been used to establish authority of Brahmana over the caste, over the lower caste, and the domination over the men over the women. Okay, so this was the thought. Okay, and Orthodox Hindu society also reacted by founding the Sanatan Dharma Sabha, Bharat Dharma Mahamandal in the north, association like the Brahman Sabha in Bengal. So, what type of sabhas were established in the opposition of all these people? Sanatan Dharma Sabha, Bharat Dharma Mahamandal in north, and the Brahman Sabha in Bengal. Okay, organizing for reform. So at the left hand side, an image has been depicted. Kesub Chandra Sen. Okay, so he was the one of the main leaders of the Brahmo Samaj. Okay, remember this. He used to belong to Brahmo Samaj. Brahmo Samaj, formed in 1830, prohibited all form of idolatry and sacrifices, believed in Upanishads. So, what they believed in Upanishads, and forbade its members from criticizing other religious practices. So these, okay, and it was critical drew upon the ideals of the religion, especially of Hinduism and Christianity, looking at the negative and positive dimensions. Okay, here the another image has been shown of the Henry Vivian de Roju, who was the, let us understand, Henry Louis Vivian DeRoggio, a teacher at Hindu College at Calcutta. So remember, he was the teacher at Hindu College, Calcutta. In 1820s, promoted the radical ideas and encouraged his pupils to question all authority, referred to as the Young Bengal movement. So what was the name of his movement? Remember all these movements which we are discussing. So referred as the Young Bengal movement. Okay. So Young Bengal movement belongs to Henry Vivian DeRoggio. Okay. And the Ramakrishna Mission, Swami Vivekananda, named after the Ramakrishna Paramhans Swami Vivekananda's guru. The Ramakrishna Mission stressed the ideal of salvation through social service and selfless action. So, what was the ideology of the salvation? It can be achieved through social service and selfless action. So, Swami Vivekananda, original name was the Narendra Datta, Narendranath Datta. So, remember the name. What was the name? Narendranath Datta. Okay. Combined the simple teaching of Sri Ramakrishna with his well-founded modern outlook and spread them all over the world. After hearing him in the World Parliament of Religious at Chicago in 1893, another very important fact that when was the religious parliament held? It was held at Chicago in 1893. Okay. The New York Herald reported that we are quoting, we feel how foolish it is to send missionaries to this learned nation. Okay, Swami Vivekananda was the first Indian who re-established the spiritual pre-eminence of the Vedanta philosophy on a global scale. So, he supported the Vedanta philosophy of, okay, remember this. So, he was in support of the Vedanta philosophy along with the social service and selfless action. Okay. He called to the people of India was to rise above the narrow confines of their religion of the kitchen and come together in the service of the nation. So he asked the people to come together and serve the nation. Okay. The Prarthana Samaj, established in 1867 at Bombay, where it was established? It was established in 1867 in Bombay. Prarthana Samaj sought to remove caste restrictions. It was also working against the caste restriction. Child marriage and encourage the women education ban on the, and also it also worked to end on the ban on the widow remarriage so that widows can remarry. Okay, they can remarry. And religious meetings drew upon the Hindu, Buddhist, and Christian texts. So Veda Samaj established in Madras. Veda Samaj was established in Madras in 1864. Here, this particular information. So Veda Samaj was inspired by whom? Brahmo Samaj. Veda Samaj established in Madras in 1864 and was inspired by Brahmo Samaj. Remember this. So its member also believed in one God. So all these things are really important facts we are covering very quickly. So when you will look at these facts or will listen, okay, or will make the notes, it would be very easy for you to recall and revise multiple times. Hence we are covering only the important facts and figures. Here another name, the Aligarh movement, the Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College founded by Sir Syed Ahmad Khan in 1875 at Aligarh. So Anglo-Oriental College founded by Syed Ahmad Khan in 1875 at Aligarh later became the Aligarh Muslim University. What he was supporting as a thought that his institution offered modern education including Western science to the Muslim, and Aligarh movement as it was known had an enormous impact in the area of educational reform. It was his contribution. And here the last, the Singh Sabha movement. Reformers organization of the Sikhs. Singh Sabha used to belong to the Sikh community. Sikh community, the first Sikh Sabha were formed at the Amritsar when in Amritsar 1873. Remember this. Amritsar 1873. First Singh Sabha was formed at Lahore in 1879. After it, first in Amritsar 1873, then Lahore 1879. Sabha sought to rid the Sikhs from the superstition, caste distinction, and the practice seen by them as non-Sikhs. All those practices which were non-Sikh they should be avoided or abolished. Okay, they promoted the education among the Sikh urban, combining the modern instruction with the Sikh teachings. So here an image has been depicted. So here is the Khalsa College. Khalsa College, Amritsar, established in 1892 by leaders of the Singh Sabha movement. So here, very important information in this particular chapter has been provided, and we have covered significantly all these topics. Okay, and the important information, though I have already underlined, you can also make the notes according to your convenience for the consumption to read, okay, and revise and look at the previous year's questions. You would be able to understand that how the straightforward questions have been asked from this particular chapter. Okay, and all other chapters which we have covered in the previous lectures, and we will cover in subsequent chapters. So keep revising all these chapters and keep learning. Okay, and I will see you in the next chapter. Till then, Jai Hind.